Hey everybody, Grace here. Welcome to another video. I wanted to have a bit of a discussion today about a kind of controversial topic. I've got some hot takes ready to go that might surprise you a bit about some of this, and that is concerning innovation in GOAT format, or really retro formats in general. Is GOAT format specifically, is it solved? Is there basically one deck? Is there room for innovation in the format? Those are the kind of topics I want to discuss today. So I want to add that this is kind of framed through the lens of large tournament play, this whole discussion. I mean, I like the War League. I like playing the rated ladder. I like, going to my locals, but really the pinnacle of Yu-Gi-Oh has always been winning big tournaments. And so that's kind of what this is all going to be framed through today. So I hear a lot of misconceptions from newer players or players that are outside of the format looking in that I strongly disagree with, and also some opinions of veterans of the format that I disagree with. So I wanted to discuss it. As always, this video, these hot takes, these are just my opinions from an average skill level duelist. So take it how you will. Let's first cover the most extreme ends of the spectrum. I hear a lot of people from outside of the format or that are newer basically say something along the lines of the format is solved, it's 20 years old, there's basically one deck, and playing pretty much anything else you're wasting your time. There's also quite a few really good duelists that pretty much share a similar opinion. On the other end of the spectrum, you have people that bring Hungry Burger Turbo to their GOAT format locals and wonder why it doesn't work out. They'll get 2-0'd by Chaos Turbo, and then they'll give up on the format entirely, believing that GOAT games are unwinnable unless you're running Thunder Dragons and Chaos Sorcerer. I personally would like to make the argument that the truth is somewhere in the middle. If you take a unique strategy, you make it your own, you cater it to the meta and play it well, you can win tournaments, but you have to hit those requirements that I just mentioned. It's been proven true again and again and again, though. We see decks that are innovative, that are weird, that are unique succeed in GOAT format tournaments still to this day. Equate it to somewhat any competitive game. You're playing League or Smash or something, and you run into someone playing that one character that no one ever plays that's at the bottom of the tier list, and they destroy you with it. The same thing, can obviously happen in Yu-Gi-Oh! There are specialists on unique decks that are scary to play against because they meet the criteria that I mentioned earlier. Unique strategy that is catered to the meta, it is tested thoroughly, and it is piloted well. I think that just saying, unique decks can succeed is not really fair because it sets people up for failure way too quickly. Unique decks can succeed if they're meeting this criteria, like I mentioned. This is a very controversial take, but I think that some duelists would actually be better served by picking up a more unconventional deck and becoming a master with it. Not all, but some. Let me kind of explain why I think that. If you enter a GOAT format tournament, unless it's your locals, you're going to run into some monsters playing the best decks in the format at the highest level. La Bounty on Warriors or Ivan Rosito on Chaos Turbo. It's inevitable that you'll encounter these types of duelists in any online tournament. So I want you to think about it. Where is your edge against these players? Do you think that you're just going to consistently outplay them? Do you think you're going to draw better than them? There's times you obviously will, but over a large sample size, they will have the advantage. You need to find your edge, and I think that being unorthodox is a great way to do that. I could take Chaos Turbo to my locals and probably destroy everyone because it's the best deck in the format and I have decent fundamentals, but I'm never going to win an online major with the deck because I will never have an edge in these high-level Chaos Turbo mirrors against the format's best. I feel personally like I'm a much more dangerous duelist on fairies than I'd be on Chaos Turbo, even though it's obviously the better deck. Now, that said, if you do believe that you have an edge in high-level turbo mirrors or that you can eventually get there, then by all means, play the best deck in the format. I'm not trying to talk anyone out of it or dissuade anyone from playing the obvious Tier 1 deck. You gotta study the best and watch your replays and keep improving, and if you believe that you can get there, then awesome, keep at it. But if you're finding yourself playing Turbo and winning against less skilled opponents because of the high floor of the deck, but you struggle to string wins together in a tournament against better opponents, maybe consider trying something more unorthodox. Maybe not. I feel like there's a lot of people that enter these tournaments that are like this. They maintain a somewhat positive win rate because they're playing the best deck. Occasionally they'll make it to a top 8 finish, but to be blunt, cannot hang in the top cut against the format's best. That's basically me when I play Warrior in tournaments. I know my limits, and I feel like once I hit a certain ceiling against really, good players, I just don't feel like I have an edge anymore. And maybe that's, a bit defeatist, or I'm not believing in myself enough, but I also just kind of know that I'm just never been that amazing at Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's okay. But yeah, that's, like I said, that's basically me when I play Warriors in tournaments. I, can occasionally make a deep run, but I just can't get past, some of these gatekeepers of titles that are the best in the format. But to some people, that's good enough. At the end of the day, do what you enjoy, of course. But I think to really get over the finish line against some of these high-level opponents, you need to find some sort of edge. So for the most competitive duelists, this is for you. We all want to win matches. That's indisputable. But you have to remember that a lot of people derive joy and satisfaction and are interested in competitive card games not only from winning games, but doing it with strategies that are very much their own or are unique. Do not instantly denote strategies as bad without even taking a moment to see how they might actually function. Maybe the deck is actually bad, but maybe there's an interesting idea in there that can potentially be expanded upon. When you tell someone that's trying unique strategies that their deck sucks and they should drop it in favor of a cookie cutter Warrior or Turbo list, you can often drive these people away from the game. If their sole focus in GOATS is to win, then sure, steer them in the right direction. Give them a list from a recent tournament or something. Sometimes people need to be told that their deck sucks so that they can actually enjoy the game instead of getting crushed. But narrowing the possibility for new players into only Warrior or Turbo hurts the format more than it helps, in my opinion. I see new duelists hop into various discords and post their, quite frankly, bad lists, and somebody inevitably roasts them or tells them that they should put their deck in the trash. This doesn't help anyone. If someone newer to GOAT shows up with their Gaia Power Beast beatdown deck, don't roast them, just steer them in the right direction if they're interested. Something as simple as hey, I see you're a fan of playing an aggressive strategy with big beaters. You should check out the latest topping Earth aggro list. It'll probably perform better for you than your current deck. Obviously, I'm being a bit preachy here, and I apologize. You clearly have no moral obligation to do any of this, but for the longevity of this incredible format, I think it is important. All right, and then for the creative deck building types, this section is for you. As much as you want your unique strategy that you've been working on to, shake up the format, it's probably not going to happen. You deserve to hear the honest truth from me. This format has been around for a long time, and the fact of the matter is that Turbo and Warriors are the best decks and have been refined and optimized again and again. Your strategy, your creative flourish on the game is never going to match up against a standard Chaos Turbo list. Never. I think the sooner that you come to terms with this, the sooner you'll enjoy the game. Now, does that mean that you're always doomed to lose to tier 1 decks and never make it out of the second round in a tournament? Of course not. But if you're playing something unique, like I mentioned earlier, there's some crucial things you have to keep in mind when deck building. The first is that your list cannot exist in a vacuum. You can't just make a deck full of cool synergies and call it a day. Your deck building has to exist within the current confines of the metagame, or you will not find success. The great litmus test for any creative strategy is against Warriors and Turbo. If your deck doesn't match up well against either of them, you're not going to win. Your deck must be catered to meet the meta head on. For example, if you find yourself perpetually getting steamrolled by Turbo, maybe consider main decking Dust Shoots or a Mind Control or a Kaiku, if they fit within the strategies of your deck, obviously. If you're getting destroyed by Warriors, maybe consider main decking a Zambira or Sakuretsu Armor or Gravekeeper Spies. The tricky balancing act, though, is finding the cards that are good against the meta that best suit your list. You don't want to run a full playset of Trap Dust Shoots if your deck contains Royal Decree, obviously. The other thing that you should keep in mind when deck building with unique cards is the scope of your innovation. You don't have to create a whole new strategy to innovate the format. There's only so many cards we have to work with here. When you're newer to the game, I'd honestly recommend against it. Play something semi-standard that you have fun with and then slowly transform it into something unique if you want. But please remember that decks like Turbo and Warriors and Control have been innovated endlessly. It's not that there's no new concepts to explore, but keep in mind that what you're trying to do in these spaces has probably been tried before, and there's probably a reason it didn't catch on. But who knows? Maybe not. There's also small micro innovations, or whatever you want to call them, that have somewhat changed the landscape of competitive GOAT format. A great example of this would be the addition of a single copy of Magician of Faith to the standard warrior list by Jonathan LeBounty. This single Magician of Faith not only caught opponents off guard, but netted a ton of value because typically Nox would get discarded early or sided out against warriors, and this single copy of Faith would become that much easier to resolve, recycling Trinity pieces or allowing warrior players to recycle Rhoda and continue their aggression. And the last thing you should keep in mind when trying something unique is to test. This is obvious. If you really want to get nerdy about it, track your matches, watch your replays, keep a little data, see what your win rate looks like against different decks. This can help you cater your strategies accordingly. Don't get discouraged if it sucks at first or upset when you get demolished by the best deck in the format, but use it to see what's working and what's not. It also helps to ask around for feedback if you are prepared to be receptive to it. In general, I prefer the feedback where somebody helps me explore potential problems with the deck rather than those that just say X card is bad, replace it with Y. But that's just me. Like I mentioned earlier, unique decks can perform if the right criteria is met. If it's been tested and refined, catered to the meta, and piloted well, it can succeed. People forget about a lot of the cool strategies that have found success in GOAT format, so I wanted to highlight some of them and the duelists that have made it happen. This is not conclusive or really that deeply researched. If you've topped with something weird and it's not included, don't take it personally. I just wanted to give some examples of how it can be done. I wanted to show the proof behind my reasoning. Maybe it'll give you a little bit of inspiration. There are some folks that are well known for consistently exploring the GOAT format card pool. One of them is, of course, Alethea 2, who's topped events and won with a bunch of interesting decks. He's topped with Zombies, he topped with Rescue Cat, he's won a major title with Cold Wave Monarchs. Just a few weeks ago, he topped a Patreon with Fiends, a deck that people pretty much exclusively say is horrible. All of his decks fit the criteria in that they are catered to the meta. Alethea himself, as much as he's innovated within the format, is pretty honest and straightforward about what isn't going to work and what is. Some of the decks he's played in the past just don't fit the current game right now, and that's okay. He'll create something else that will. It also helps that he's just really good at Yu-Gi-Oh! Another person who's really put their creative stamp on the format is Pui. Go check out her YouTube channel if you haven't already. It's far more insightful than mine. You can find her thoughts on a lot of the unique decks she's played. She won a Patreon with Gravekeeper Warriors. She's topped with Zork and other strange concept and has seen success with unique smokescreen side deck strategies. And of course, she's known for being one of the forefront innovators and experts on all things burn. Another great duelist by the name of Wavement took the strategy of Relinquish, which in the past has been mostly played as a control deck with goats and meta, and he turned this Manju engine into basically a Chaos Turbo deck that's far more resilient to knock and mind control than standard Chaos Turbo. He took this and went undefeated in Swiss at a recent FLC and won a GOAT Grand Prix with it. Nova Ethos is another great innovator who has hops with Zombies. Shaggy Powers is most notable, but there's a ton of great innovators in the Earth aggro world that have seen success. Jace is a fantastic turbo player that recently got second place at a tournament playing his own original creation of Relinquished Burn with Exchange. This deck is nasty. Geist D is one of the best duelists in GOAT format's history, and his Chaos Control list regularly smokes people when piloted well. I, of course, on this channel like to talk about fairies. I think that Venus's ability to summon multiple light monsters in one turn makes Zaborg and Creature Swap so much more consistent and reliable. I'll throw up some other deck lists for innovative concepts that have done well just in the past few months. The wild thing to me is that the people other than the deck builders themselves rarely take these successful lists and expand upon them and make it their own. They're just left untouched to history, and duelists continue playing what they've always played. the rare occasion where people actually continue playing these lists, they've seen success. I recently came across a duelist by the name of Pike Freak who picked up Waveman's Relinquished Chaos type list and is currently 6-2 in the War League with it. This whole video may just be me coping, I'll admit that. Maybe we're getting closer to the GOAT format singularity where turbo mirrors is all we'll pay witness to. I do like that the mirror is at least quite skill intensive, but I still have hope that there's innovation to be found in the format. We just need more people willing to go out on a limb and play decks without the high floor that Chaos Turbo and Warriors provide. As for me, I'm going to continue to try to innovate and find my edge in tournaments with unique lists. I've had my fun and topped with Warriors, but for now I will not be entering a tournament with the deck. And it's not because I want to make some statement about innovation, but because I firmly believe in some of the concepts that I talked about earlier in this video. I know my limits as a duelist, and I do not have an edge against the format's best if I play a standard list, I think. They're just too damn good. The gap is not worth trying to overcome, at least for me. I'm not going to win a mirror against Moxies or a turbo matchup against Alvarado unless I'm sacking left and right, and I don't want to win that way. Again, this is just me. Once again, I'm not implying that anyone needs to bail on playing the best decks in the format unless you're in the top 10 on format library. That's not what I'm saying. If you believe that you can hang with the best, keep grinding and getting better, and screw innovation. The most popular GOAT decks have been sharpened to a fine blade. You will no doubt find success. But I believe that there is still unique concepts to be explored in this nearly 20-year-old format. That's proven by many of the decks I've recently shown. You can look back in GOAT's past and find a plethora of unique concepts that have been done well and may need to be revisited and catered to 2024. Maybe the format is just slowly becoming the Turbo Tier 0 format, but I wanted to at least get the conversation going. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for joining me. Until the next one.